Shalom Aleichem, Erev Tov. Good evening. We are together in another Mishpat Tzedek class. This is the sixth Mishpat Tzedek class of this series. Last week was supposed to be the sixth. I appreciate your patience with me in my last-minute cancellation last week. There was a concept I wanted to touch on last week, but Min Shemaya, I didn't teach about it because it's going to require us to delve very deeply into some sources that are intense, and we're going to get to them. So it's not that I'm skipping it. I'm simply going to push it off to a week where I have the right amount of time to teach about it and prepare for it. But for right now, I want you to open the book of Shemot to chapter 23. In the source sheet, it's source 1. And this shiur has gone through a number of, for lack of a Maimonidean word, gilgulim. What do I mean by gilgulim? In the generation of the introductions, we went through some pretty intense sources. From Arav Uzziah and Herzog and Rabbi Chaim David Halevi. And we then transitioned into preparing these Pesukim that we need for our understanding of the halachot of the Rambam that are coming up. And I spent time in this winter not just reading through Pesukim with you, but trying as much as I can, I hope I was successful, how to read Mikra, how to understand, what questions to ask, which truthful understandings to extract from those texts. Today I want to try something else. Obviously still connected to the Mikra, but perhaps a little more halachic, getting a little more into the text of halakha while we are reading these Pesukim from the Mikra. Yesterday, I was in Los Angeles. I have to get ready for Purim. Holidays are coming. And when it became known to me that I was going to be in Los Angeles, Rabbi Moshe Ben Zaken, who sits with me on the Shiviti Bedin, said, we're supposed to meet as a Bedin later on in the spring, but there's an instance that has come up. There's a couple, they've been learning with me for 2.5 years. We really need to help them before Pesach enter into Am Yisrael. So just like that, our Bedin, being that Rabbi Moshe knows them for so long, was able to convene, though Rabbi Yosef, for example, was not able to be because he is on the other side of the country and he's scheduled to come for the actual Bedin meeting that we have. We were able to welcome in 2 neshamot yesterday into Am Yisrael. And then after that, on the fly, we had to conduct a wedding. Filling out the ketubah, and the ketubah was a standard American kind of ketubah that doesn't follow any of the norms that I'm familiar with. And there was a moment where I was just very grateful. One, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for allowing me the opportunity to do the things that I do. I'm very grateful to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that in turn was gratitude to the people that learned Torah with me. When I tell a story like this, instead of clicking the end call button and running for the mountains because it is something that is perhaps not traditional or not acceptable in the American rabbinate to do, I have people that learn Torah with me who are very supportive of things that we do here, and I'm grateful to you for that. And I can't lie that while I was doing all of that, and there's a story maybe I'll share with you off the camera if you want, but not on the camera. While I was doing all of that, I was grateful to Mori Harav, who taught us halakha well. This story I could share with you. My brother Ariel, who usually comes to our shiurim, Ariel was getting married in Atlantic Beach. I think the place is called the Sands. He got married and reached out to me to ask me if I would do him and his shira, my sister-in-law's wedding. And as usual, I inquired, so who else is going to be at the wedding? Which other Talmidei Chachamim? He mentioned some names. One of the names was Rabbi David Feinstein. Alav Hashalom. That's the way of it. And I told my brother Arya, I said, Arya, with all due respect, I know you love me and I'm your brother, but when you go to a wedding and you have Moshe Feinstein's son there, he should do the wedding. And my sister-in-law said, we know Rabbi Feinstein for many years, but we want a Sephardic wedding. I said, listen, I would choose a wedding of a tremendous Rosh Yeshiva than I would a Sephardic wedding. Push came to shove. I sent a letter to Rabbi David Feinstein and he laughed because as a humble man, he just said, please do the wedding. At the chuppah, a number of very famous Talmidei Chachamim were there. And I have to tell you, doing a wedding in San Diego is one thing. Doing a wedding in New York, in the eyes of a number of what you might call very mainstream American Orthodox Rosh Yeshiva, there was a little bit of pressure. And when I came down from the chuppah, Rabbi David Feinstein came over to me. And one thing he had to tell me was he tremendously enjoyed the joke that I told at the beginning of the chuppah. He really enjoyed it. He said, but number two, he said, I don't know where you learned halakha, but whoever taught you halakha taught you very, very well. And I was very grateful. I was grateful because in my life, the amount of times that I've needed in a last-minute scenario to rely on the Torah that I've learned, that I was taught by Mori Harav, is tremendous. And so this Shiur, Mishpat Tzedek, I think it encompasses so far some of the main things that I could try that if anyone were to learn Torah with me, I hope to give to you. Number one, very intense conversations like we did in the introductions here. Topics that people are afraid to talk about, ideas. I don't like the word theology or philosophy, but concepts in Jewish thought that other people are afraid to touch, that we're not afraid to touch them here. The second part of that is to know source as well. A huge part of everything that we do in Shiviti is to make sure that people who learn Torah with us know how to open and read classical sources to the best of their knowledge. The Mikra, Mishnah, Talmud, Rambam, Shulchan Aruch, particularly. You should feel that when you learn Torah, you're not learning from some random thought, some random idea, but the things that you're learning are firmly rooted in how to read those texts. And then last but not least, halakha l'maaseh. And maybe in this particular Mishpat Tzedek class, there's a little bit less of halakha l'maaseh because we're dealing with the Sanhedrin, so we're dealing with a concept that has not yet come to fruition in our lifetime. But there are halachot in the halachot of Sanhedrin that are relevant. And so maybe different than my Shulchan Aruch class tomorrow night, where we're talking about how to lead tefillah or which parts of the Amidah, whatever we're doing there. Maybe different than a Shabbat shiur here in the Beit HaKnesset, where we talk about halakha l'maaseh. This is a class that is less l'maaseh as it is l'halakha. But it's important for me that even here we touch on some actual halachic concepts. And today, I'm hoping to walk you through a little bit. There's some things that likely you know, but to know them better, to know them well, so you can walk away from here saying, I learned something that not only is beautiful, but it's also practical. So, together. Let's look at the Pesukim there in front of us. I brought a chumash. The Pasuk says the following. Lo tisa shema shav. Do not accept a false report. Al tashet yadecha im rasha liot ed Hamas. Do not join hands with a rasha, with an evil person, to be a false witness. Lo tiyeh acharei rabim leraot. Do not follow the majority to do evil because that's what they're doing evil. V'lo ta'aneh al riv lintot acharei rabim lehatot. The best English I'm going to tell you, I'm reading for you here. Do not respond with your opinion in a dispute merely to lean toward one side. It must be decided by the majority when we deal with the halakha. We'll talk about what that actually means. Vidal lo tedar berivo. A dal is a poor person. You should not show favoritism to him in his fight. Two more pesukim that have to do with donkeys, oxen. Not for me right now. Look in pasuk vav. Lo tate mishpat evyonecha berivo. You should not bend the law. What's an evyon? We have a halakha this week on Friday. What is an evyon?
It's similar to that. To ani.
Ani, dal, evyon, they're all words describing poverty. Poverty. You could want why here dal, why evyon? Not right now. But yeah, an evyon is someone who's like it's a misken. We have a mitzvah this Friday to give tzedakah to at least 2 evyonim. Mishloach manot, how many mishloach manot do you have to give? 2 foods to 1 person. So Rachel's right, you give 1, meaning in total, you're giving food to 1 person. By the way, if I can, I know it's Purim now. I don't want to get distracted by Hilchot Purim. I really would love to teach you about Purim. So much of what happens on Purim is sheker v'chazal, is a lie, is not true. So much of the way in which Purim is celebrated is absurd. Purim is not a carnival, it's not a circus, it's not a costume party, it's not a prerequisite for an AA meeting. Purim is not any of the things that people have turned Purim into. Purim is a Yom Tov, it's a holiday, a very beautiful holiday. But if I were to tell you that all of the things that people do on Purim have nothing to do with Purim, then, like someone accused me of the other day, that I'm the Grinch who stole Purim. Wait till you hear about Chanukah. Yeah, it's a whole other world. But I don't believe in the Grinch, so I don't know. Maybe I am the Grinch who stole Purim, but what can I tell you? Purim is a holiday that is really beautiful, and at the root of that beauty is that in this holiday we take care of each other. Just like we went to war for each other, and we saved Am Yisrael, we're also now taking care of all of the poor people on Purim. It's the only day in the year where halakha says, Kol poshet yad, anyone who puts out a hand, we give him tzedakah. Notenim lo. Mishloach manot. 2 things about mishloach manot. You do not fulfill your mitzvah of mishloach manot by giving people potato chips and lollipops. Or, I don't know, bubble gum and whatever. I don't know what people give in their mishloach manot. You open mishloach manot, and it's all garbage. Mechila, I don't mean to insult anybody. There's nothing in there that is manot for a seudah. You have an obligation to give proper mishloach manot. That means, you want an example? California example? A piece of salmon with some quinoa. You can give chicken and rice, meat and potatoes. Manot, food that people are going to eat at their seudah. To how many people? To 1 person. Everybody here should give mishloach manot to 1 person. Ish l're'ehu, a man should give mishloach manot to a man, and a woman should give mishloach manot to a woman. That path shouldn't be crossed. But once you fulfill the mitzvah, once I bring my mother, or my wife brings my mother, I bring my father a piece of fish and quinoa, rice and chicken, I fulfill the mitzvah. Now, how many more mishloach manot do I need to do? None. All of the money that is left, that people are going to spend on cellophane wrappers and bows and bottles of wine and all of the things they're going to give to impress their friends. By the way, they don't observe Pesach like me. So Pesach is, for me, it's 5 weeks away. But for everybody else, they're worried about Pesach the day after Purim. And they're terrified that maybe the bottle of water you brought them is chametz, because that's the new thing, is the water is chametz. And now you come to people's houses the month before Pesach, and you jump all of your chametz, you're dumping on them. Which kind of simcha is here? But imagine if you took all of that money all of it, and you gave it to poor people who actually needed it? What is the definition of a poor person, an evion, and how? What's the definition of evion? When does a person become an evion? It's okay if you were here on Shabbat, you can answer the question. Everybody in this room is going to fulfill the mitzvah, hopefully, matanot levionim on Friday. Between now and Friday, you have to find out what is an evion. What is the halachic parameter of an evion? How poor is poor?
For Purim, it's everyone who's asking, not necessarily, we don't know, right? For Purim, so everybody poshet yad.
Notanim lo mishum mitzvah tzedakah, but that doesn't fulfill the mitzvah of matanot levionim. Matanot levionim is particular type of poor people. Two of them.
Is it they can't? There's someone who's so poor that they can't even afford to have their meal for the day, or 2 meals, something like that.
How much does a meal for the day cost?
I guess that depends on the market. Right now, you can get a nice meal for one person from let's say you can get someone a catered meal for approximately $20.
Okay. So, how many of you know a Jewish person who lives next to you who doesn't have? What I mean doesn't mean they don't have, as in they have $700,000 in their savings and they don't want to touch it. I don't mean that. I don't mean they have 3 homes. One of them they rent for an Airbnb, and the other one I don't mean that. I mean the person who doesn't have. If right now they needed to come up with $20 to save their life, they don't have $20. Who do you know like that? Do you know 2 such people? No, so that's not the definition of an evion.
What was the question?
What is the halachic definition of evion? Everyone is going to. I know it's not your first Purim, so I'm not going to ask what you did last year. This year I'm going to ask, who are you going to give tzedakah to? How about I give you a more realistic? I'll help you answer the question.
I have an answer for who to give to.
Tell me.
I give to the Rav of my Beit Knesset, and he distributes.
Good. Okay. No. Tough. So to give to a person who's a proper messenger, not an organization, not to some. I'm not telling you that. Someone who's going to distribute the money on Purim to a person, 2 people who need the money. It's good. I do the same thing, and the Rav is the best person to go to. Why? Because the rabbi of the community, he knows who's in the community. Usually, if he's aware enough, he's awake enough. He knows what's happening in the Kehillat, who needs, who doesn't need, who's having a hard time, who lost their job. They know those things. Okay, so who does the Rav give it to? Meaning, what does he decide that? How does he decide? So I'll tell you. I'm going to help. Because it's a tangent of Purim I didn't mean to take, but it came up the word Evyonecha, so I figure you have to know what is an Evyon. Something much more realistic. Imagine how many people you know who have jobs. They have jobs. Their children go to school. Rabbi Binyamin, they were able to eat a meal on Shabbat last week. 3 meals they had. Friday night, Shabbat day, Sunnah Shalishit. Even maybe Menaveh Malka, they had some pizza, maybe. They had 4 meals. But now it's going to come time to pay their rent at the end of the month. It's going to be their electric bill, their water bill, essentials, things that are essential. And it's hard. It's pressure. It's not so clear to them that even with their work and even with their attempt, they're still struggling. That person is in the halachic category of an evion. And by the way, if someone just discovered, wow, I'm an evion, look, don't be scared. I'm telling you that this is a more realistic understand what is an evion. It's a person who's going to feel pressure. And that pressure is very real. I'm not telling you an evion is somebody who can't afford to go with the rest of the Jews on a cruise, kosher cruise to the middle, Bahamas somewhere. A Jew that can't afford the $75,000 Pesach hotel. He's not an evion. He's Hashem is blessing him to avoid such things. But the person who can't, the things, the basic needs that he or her need, they can't afford to cover them. They're pressured about it. That's an evion. That's who you should give money to. And you all know people like that. I saw a statistic in the United States of America, it's a tremendous number. I don't want to get caught in this. Maybe 50% of Americans, it could be more, they said, that if their car were to break down tomorrow and it needed $500 worth of repairs, and please show me the mechanic shop that will fix a car for $500, that if they needed to repair their car for $500, they wouldn't know where to get that money from because they don't have that much money saved. You can give me shulim on financial planning and people budgeting. I'm not here to judge anyone. I'm here to tell you this is a more realistic scenario of people that you know who need your help. Stop buying gifts of wine and cookies and candy platters. Rabbi Aharon Oppenheim and I, we once went together to Evergreen in Pomona. We were together, right? And I decided to go look they had like a section of these candy platters. I wanted to buy my aunt something to visit. I was visiting my aunt. I wanted to buy her something. And I picked up this little thing. I can't tell you how small it was. Small little 4 pieces of candy. But I flipped it over to see the price and I almost fainted. $75. $75. And then I saw the next one and it looked nice. $190. I said to myself, if somebody were to bring that to me, I would accuse them of the biblical prohibition of bal tashchit. It's wasteful. What are you busy spending so much money on that? But there are people this year who are going to spend tremendous amounts of money on flattering their friends, on buying meat platters for their buddies at work, all kinds of fantasies of mishloach manot, but actually helping evyonim that are living next to us, that are watching us get all these packages and give all these packages. We don't care for them. So one person choose to give mishloach manot. The rest of the money give to other people.
I have a quick question.
Please.
Would you call someone who, like, for instance, I don't want to offend anyone when I say this, but like someone who's keeping up with the Joneses, like who's like they have a flashy car, flashy house, and putting it all on their credit card, they can't pay any of it off. Like they don't have money, like they have no cash, but everything's being put on the card. Are they technically at the own then?
Alex, we don't have to go to the more extreme example of a person who is highly irresponsible with how they live their life. I'm telling you about a person who otherwise is doing their best. They drive a car that's 20 years old. It's in the shop every other weekend. They're in a house they've been living with 7 children since they had 2 bedrooms. They're still in 2 bedrooms. And they're not people that are not working, and they're not people that are not trying, and they're not people that are, it's hard. Life is hard. There's no one to reach out to. That person...
Meaning in like an actual like halakhic sense, like if that really is the status of such a person.
If such a person like that is an avion, I don't know if he's an avion. For sure he's a miskin. For sure he's a miskin. To live in the pressure to live up to everybody else's expectations is a very difficult. I mean, most of you live in a Jewish community less than I do. My Kehillat, Baruch Hashem, people, even who they have, they're good people, humble people. We all sponsor the same kiddush for the bar mitzvah, for the anniversary, or for the same kiddush, the same fish, the same rice, the same salad. No, but you go to places and somebody recently told me they're in a bet Knesset to sponsor kiddush, $6,000. Okay, maybe for you that's cheap, but for me that's a crazy number. It'd be wonderful if someone sponsored kiddush here for $6,000. We'd cover kiddush the rest of the year. But the idea that there are communities that create a very high standard of living that does not work for everybody, and then they drive themselves into debt is a tragedy. But it's on the leadership of the community to fight that tragedy. Just most of the time, the leadership is also owned by the people who make such problems. Example, Alex, some people here, maybe not here, let me see. I won't mention it. Some people here were with me at weddings during COVID. Backyard weddings, less than 30 people weddings, public park weddings, on the beach weddings, those kind of weddings. And I went to those weddings, and they were beautiful for a number of reasons. Beautiful because only the people you actually liked were there. That was beautiful, number one. And number two, people did a wedding in their backyard. And there was food, and they danced, and they drank, and they had a wonderful time. And everybody came out just as married as the people who took out $200,000 loans and are paying them off till their kids' bar mitzvahs. They're just as Jewishly married. They're just as halachically married. And I said, wow, can you imagine if after COVID, people are going to continue doing this the same way? If we just got married in the backyard, just got married in the Bet Knesset, in the parking lot of the Bet Knesset. Imagine if such a reality happened, and the pressure that people have to marry off their children, to buy apartments for all this stuff, all the pressure that people run around with the whole day. Imagine if we could heal that as a society. I know Baruch Hashem, my Kehillat here, I don't have people here are something special. The poking out of the eyes, but when I travel, I see it all the time, and it's no one person's fault. Collectively, as a Kehillat, as a community, a Jewish community, we have to be careful with these things. It doesn't mean that people who have shouldn't enjoy. It just means, how do you live? What are the values of tzniut that our forefathers gave to us? They don't seem to always be represented properly here. Somebody sent me a mishloach manot for $1,000. You could say mishloach manot for $1,000? Shayach, such a thing? So I went on a tangent, mamash, I didn't mean to go to. The next pasuk, midevar sheker tirchak. You must stay away from falsehood. V'naki v'tzadik al taharog. And an innocent person and a righteous person you shall not kill. Ki lo atzdik rasha. Because I will not exonerate, acquit, make innocent a person who is wicked. V'shochad lo tikach. And shochad is bribery. You shall not take. Ki hashochad ya'aver pikrim. V'yisalef divrei tzadikim. Because bribery blinds the clear-sighted and perverts the words that are righteous. A dayan that takes money for dayanut, what does the halakha say? En dino din. His judgment is not considered valid. En dino din. So, let's look at these pisukim one at a time, starting with one. We're probably not going to finish them all today, but let's look at them properly so we can understand what the Torah is trying to tell us here and how they are related to the laws of Sanhedrin. Let's look at pasuk number 1. Lo tisa shema shav al tashed yadecha im rasha liot ed Hamas. I gave you a source sheet on Sefaria. If you have Rambam in front of you, or you want to click on the one in the source sheet, we're on the laws of Edut, chapter 10. So says Rabbeinu Rambam, chapter 10, the laws of Edut. You see that? Rambam writes the following. Hareshaim, evil people. Pesulin le'edut min haTorah. Are biblically prohibited or nullified, and there's the English word for that, to give testimony according to the Torah. Shneimar al tashet yadecha im rasha liot en Hamas. The verse that we learned here. Mipia shimu'ah lamdu. From the shimu'ah. What does it mean, shimu'ah? We use in the Rambam the word shimu'ah. Yeah, I mean, how we understand Shimu'ah, like from hearing. We heard person after person after person in the Torah Shabbat Peh. How the Masoret and the Jewish people, how we interpret this verse. Al Tashet Rasha Ed. Do not make a Rasha a witness. Now, Rambam gives an interesting scenario. So let's talk for a minute about a bedin. In order to convict a person in bedin, how many witnesses do you need?
Two.
Two men over the age of bar mitzvah who are clearly not rishaim. Without two witnesses, what happens to the person who committed the crime?
Goes.
They go free. They go free. So let's say you saw the crime, and you are certain that you saw this person kill another person. And there's somebody else who is a rasha, who they saw the same crime. Should you maybe join forces, even though they're not kasher to be a witness? Let's join forces because I know that what I'm accomplishing is right. Says Rabbeinu Rambam, "Va'afilu ed kasher sheyada bechavero shu rasha." Even a kasher witness who saw in his friend that he's a rasha. Ve'en hadayanin makirin rish'o, and he knows the dayanin, they don't know that this person is a rasha. Asur lo leha'id imo. It's forbidden for you to give testimony with this person. Af al pi shehi edut emet, even though the testimony at the end of the day is true. Mipnei shemitztaref imo, but because you are joining with them, that is forbidden. V'nimtza ze hakasher, heshit yado im harasha, ad shenitkabana eduto. This person has now joined forces with the rasha, and even though the end is righteous, meaning that the criminal is convicted, but the end does not justify the means. The end does not justify the means. This is a hard halakha. Because you want something to happen. You know it's right. But at the end of the day, there's a process. You have to go through the process. And if the process doesn't work, you can't decide on your own to join with a rasha in order to convict a person of a crime that even if they did, that the Torah would not consider them guilty. Now, why is this relevant, this halakha here? Aside from the comes from this pasuk. Yesterday, I did a wedding. B'sat Hashem, at the end of the month, I have a few more weddings I'll be at. One of the things that happens when we prepare chatan and kala for weddings, we have to talk about who are going to be the witnesses on the ketubah. Now, in our minds, first off, how many witnesses are supposed to be at a wedding? Can you help me with this? Two. Anybody here ever been a witness at a wedding? Good. How many witnesses, Rabbi Yitzchak Shem Tov, how many witnesses were at the wedding that you were at?
Myself and one other person who were appointed to the ADM.
Okay. And that means you signed your name in the ketubah?
I was present at the chuppah witnessing it. I signed the ketubah. I can't even remember whether or not. I'm assuming I must have, but I was present at the chuppah witnessing it.
Okay, don't worry about that. How about at the yichud room? You're at the yichud room also?
A long time ago.
In or outside the door?
I've done that. We're standing out, like go into the room, see that it's empty, come out, see the couple go in, and stand outside the door for X amount of minutes.
Yeah, a typical Ashkenazi wedding has 3 sets of meeting.
Oh.
They have the 8-day kiddushin and the 8-day of the Yippa day.
Very, Benya.
Any weddings that I've been to, they've had this foreign formula.
Rabbi Binyamin knows what I was getting at. You find this in many weddings. They have 3 sets of witnesses. Rabbi Yitzchak, that's why I was asking you which one you were. If you did everything, Hine Matov Manaim. But I find they have 2 witnesses by the chuppah, 2 witnesses in the ketubah, and 2 completely different witnesses that are by the yichud. Put aside, Sevarim know the yichud. I'm not here to make promises. I'm saying in this scenario where there are 3. So who's actually the witnesses of this wedding?
All of them.
All of them. I'm supposed to have 2 though. What do I do with 6 witnesses? And by the way, how am I going to find the other 4? One day I have to do something in Bedin. What am I going to find the other 4? I don't even have their names. I'm going to judge everybody favorably. I'm going to judge everyone favorably. Is that you don't even have the names of the ones that are signed on the ketubah. You don't even know who they are. A few reasons I'm going to tell you why. Reason number one, have you ever seen the way Edim sign their name in the ketubah? It looks like chicken scratch. None of these people should be soferim because you can't read what they wrote. How do you know? When the person comes to read the ketubah, they read everything beautifully. The hardest Aramaic words in the world comes the name of the person, he can't even read their name. Why? Like that, they wrote. Okay, now I don't know who they are. Number one. Number two, especially in the United States, Jews have double identities. They have names and they have names. They have names they use and names they write. What do I mean?
They have Hebrew names,
They have Hebrew names. Hebrew names.
English names.
Okay, good. Nicknames.
Yeah,
Nicknames.
isn't it like basically like my Hebrew name is Avram David, if anyone were to ever take my ketubah and look for who's Avram David, they'd have no idea who that is.
Hold on, Alex. Alex, you let me use you as an example.
Yeah.
Okay, your English name.
I don't mind.
Your English name is Alex.
Yeah.
Your father's English name?
Daniel.
Daniel. Okay, your Hebrew name is Avraham David.
Yes.
Your father's Hebrew name?
Daniel Adam.
Daniel Adam. Okay, now watch. Let's say that Alex was a witness on a chuppah. They would tell him on the ketubah, they would tell him at the chuppah to sign his name, Avraham David ben Daniel Adam Levi, no?
Yeah.
Ben Daniel Adam Halevi. That's what they would write. Now comes time for this woman to get her ketubah. She has to bring witnesses to Bedin. And they say, where does he live? He lives in New York. We start going all the Beit Knesset in New York. Unless I bump into the Gabai who gives out aliyot at Alex's Beit Knesset, I guarantee you that nobody in the world knows who Avraham David ben Daniel Adam Halevi is. Nobody. So who's that?
No, I think maybe Ben knows.
Ben knows. Good. Ben knows a lot of things. So what do you have a problem now? You have a problem that on the ketubah, there are actually no witnesses signed. Chatan and Kala. Alex, let's forget you. Let's forget the witness. Let's talk about the Chatan and Kala. You have somebody, I don't know, his English name is Mark. I'm going to give him a name, Mark. His father's name is Chuck. I'm going to choose some name here. Yeah? But he is otherwise known as Mordechai Gedalia ben David Yitzchak HaKohen. That's how he's known. Now, in the chuppah it says, we saw, I don't remember the name that I made up, Mordechai Gedalia ben Yitzchak HaKohen, he's signing the ketubah. We don't even know. If you would tell the Chatan, he probably doesn't even know that's his chuppah, his ketubah. What happened to his real name that he uses? What happened to his family name? There's an identifying name here. There's a last name that should be in the ketubah. So, for example, Alex, how I would write your name in a ketubah? I would write Avraham David, the Mitkare, who is called Alex, Ben Daniel Adam. Maybe there Daniel and Daniel are the same, so let's leave it. Halevi, the Mishpachat Bablik, and I would write that in the ketubah, because without that information, how do I ever know who the people are who are here? But now we added 4 more witnesses that we don't even have their names. How are we supposed to find them? And you find the laws of Edut, a lot of people, they make mistakes. There are things that are standard. Already today, you talk about them. Chas v'shalom, you're ruining all of the minhagim of the Jewish people. But these are important things, what I'm telling you now.
But wait, question then. Essentially, all the ketubot then, especially in the are essentially useless, are invalid.
And so then my next question is, what are we supposed to, should we fix our ketubot?
Well, what? Nechama, just because you said you wish I would do the wedding doesn't mean that I'm going to now do a new one, okay? What?
I feel like there are so many reasons that have come up where we've discussed, like, modern ketubot are, like, silly and not worth much, like, so are you supposed to fix it or like whatever? We're very
Okay, so let's say like this. Lo bati lifsol. I didn't come now to make pisulin everywhere. Not the point. I never come to places to make problems. I'm sure that every single thing that I said now somebody can justify halachically, it's a wonderful thing. If only they justified other things halachically also. But I'm here. The ketubah in general, I've spoken about it before. The ketubah in general, and I'm on camera, I'm a problem. Whoever uses their ketubah. When's the last time a couple got divorced and they said, you know what? We're not going to ruin each other's names. We're not going to take the kids from each other. We're not going to empty each other's bank accounts. We're not going to slander your names all over the Batei Knesset in the neighborhood. We're just going to do what we said in the ketubah. We're going to split civilly. We're going to agree to the amount of money that we wrote here. Shalom alecha nafshi. It didn't work. It didn't work. How often does that happen? The ketubah is when's the last time a man ever paid his wife the $999 million he promised her under the chuppah? She can't even get child support out of him. She's busy squeezing him for a few dollars. Or when's the last time he wrote $180,000 and that's all she took from him? She wants everything he has, not just what's written in the ketubah. So in essence, the ketubot are useless. I'm going to say not useless, chas v'shalom, but we don't treat them seriously, which is why all the things that we do with them, they're not. I always tell people at a wedding, it's not a ritual that we're going through. It's not some religious ritual. This is a legal document that's bound by the laws of the nation of Israel. It's something very important. The people who want to treat this as kibudim and honors, and it's not for me. I rarely ever do chuppot. Rarely ever do chuppot. And if I do chuppot, it's only for people I really know and I really trust and I really know that they will do a wedding properly. And they know at the end of, if ever that would happen, they would do it properly as well. So I didn't come to make a psuli now. I came just to say, so now the next thing you know. The next thing you know is you're at a wedding, and now you have to look for witnesses. So when you look for witnesses for a ketubah, what are you looking for? But I'm telling you right now that nothing that I'm saying right now that I plan to teach today in the shiur, and if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted us to study today, that's what we're studying today. And I appreciate you always being with me on the ride, wherever the Torah takes us. When you're looking for witnesses, do you know, they always ask for what? What are we looking for?
They have to be HaShamayim, Shemorim Torah Mitzvot.
You have to be HaShamayim, Shemorim Torah Mitzvot. Okay, what else?
But what does that exactly entail?
Whoa.
They've always said, I've always heard all day, but how do you know, one, that they're actually doing that, and then two, what if they're doing all the other things wrong?
But they keep Shabbat and they eat kasher. I never know how you could check if someone keeps Taharat Mishpacha. So they Shabbat and kasher, yeah.
Sorry, Rabbi, if I can add to that, but they keep Shabbat and kasher, but they're not monotheists.
Oh, they're pagans.
Right. That's true.
Shachiach hadavar hazeh. B'Yitzchak, that's also very common. That's also very common.
They just
You know, I was listening to a shiur. I mean, no politics right now, nothing. I was listening to a shiur of the Ger Hasidim, Gur. They broke away into two groups this recent years. It's a very dangerous Hasidut to break away from, so there's a lot of stuff going on there. But the Rosh Yeshiva of Ger, his name is Rabbi Shaul Alter. I don't know him, I never visited. Someone said me a shiur, I was listening to a shiur. Let's talk about what the ideas of Hasidut are. And he mentioned a foundational concept of Hasidut. It doesn't say that other people don't have this, but something that's important for him always to stress is that being religious is not enough. You're supposed to focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And by the way, it could be when he says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I think HaKadosh Baruch Hu is very different. B'Yitzchak ben Kehillat, I'm not trying to get you triggered on that one. But what I mean to say is that the idea is that there are so many people who go through the motions of our faith, but they don't have any of the proper relationships with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and maybe even negative. It's even incorrect. Those are things, the things that are in matters of emunah. I don't know how you. I have a thermometer. Like I can't come with my turkey thermometer and stab a person at the chuppah. Oh, does he have yirat shamayim? I have no way to check that. But we always, in the United States especially, what makes a person religious? If they eat kasher food, they keep kashrut, and they keep Shabbat. They always say, again, Taharat Mishpacha, I have no clue how you check that. Yeah, but those are the things that make a person religious. Otherwise, everything else is okay. Meaning, if I brought to a chuppah somebody who wasn't so particular about food that was kasher, or Shabbat, I don't know, maybe they did things on Shabbat you and I wouldn't do. But 611 mitzvot. I'm counting obviously incorrectly, but all the rest of the mitzvot they were perfect in. Who would feel comfortable having them on their ketubah? which tells you that somehow we've narrowed down what it means to be Shomer Torah Mitzvot to a pitiful and very simple and not so clear why those two things from all the things. So let's talk instead of what makes one kasher, maybe what makes an ed pasul. So here we mentioned that Reshaim are edim pesulim. That's one of the most famous. It's a pesul in the edim is resha, but there are 7 categories of witnesses that are not kasher. Again, I don't mean to offend anyone. I'm simply sharing with you what is written in Shulchan Aruch in the laws of edut. So number 1, people that are pesule edut, machamat kuruva, because of closeness, meaning they're relatives to each other. Relatives to each other, meaning they're family. They can't be family with who? Let's use a wedding. For our case, let's use a wedding, okay? With each other, or with the chatan and kala. So there cannot be family relation in any of those directions. Now, obviously, family relation is broad. So there could be people that are distantly related that are kisharim. If you look in halakha, there's rishon b'rishon, rishon b'shani, shlishi b'shani, all kinds of calculations on who is related to who. By the way, an interesting halakha you learn from here, that a husband and a wife in halakha, so this is a din, it's not a fluffy idea of the rabbi goes to the doctor, our leg hurts us, it's not a shalom bayit class, I'm giving you now. It's a halakha, it's a din. The din says that a man and a woman who are married are not any kind of degree of separation. They're literally one person. So even though they're 2 separate people from 2 separate families, by the fact that they're married, they become one person as it relates to the laws of edut. That has ramifications to siblings, to in-laws, to cousins, to uncles, how you do the math there. Okay, that's number 1. I think most people know that. You can't be related to each other and you can't be related to the chatan and kala. I did a wedding in Israel last year and I had to find edim, and the problem was I was family with the bride. And usually I put myself, if there's no other witness, I'll put myself on the ketubah, but I couldn't do that here. And any other witness that we would have found, almost everybody was either family or not kasher for other reasons. It's complicated. Number 2, this is the one that the Rambam is talking about here, is someone who's pasul, because rasha pasul edut. A rasha is not a valid witness. So, averot. Somebody who is pasul because they have averot. They're guilty of averot. We're going to talk what those things are. Number 3. What other category of people that are not kasher le'edut? Bezuim. What are bezuim?
People disregard them, they have reputation of bad people.
Yeah, let me read to Shulchan Aruch. Maran writes that bezuim, people that are degraded, they're not, they're considered not important people. Pesulim le'edut medivrehem. They are rabbinically prohibited from being witnesses. Hem anashim sholchim v'ochlim bashuk bifnei kol ha'am. There are people who walk around and eat food in public, in the market, in front of everybody. I really don't want to explain this halakha to you. Because contrary to what you were told in Jewish school, it has nothing to do with walking and eating. Nothing. Everything to do with eating in public. Somehow, I don't know, I heard all kinds of stories. Seminary girls, yeshiva getting picked on. Oh, you can't eat and walk and sit. Maybe you should. I mean, it's not a good idea to eat and walk. The problem is eating in public. I was once with Mori Harav and we were walking by a place, a restaurant, and people are eating in the street. And I was like, how could they be eating in the street? I said, Harav, don't worry. He said, are they religious people? I said, I can't accept that religious people would ever eat in the street. In a restaurant, sitting outside. I said, Harav, I don't think you want to know the answer to that question. He said, maybe you should make a list of all the people who eat outside in a restaurant and put them on a list of people who are pesulim le'edut. But in that case, you're never going to find a witness that is pasul le'edut, but this is something that our chachamim were sensitive to. Or also, כגון אלו שהולכים ערומים בשוק בעת שהם עסוקים במלאכה מנוולת. People that walk naked in the streets, are they actually naked?
Not really.
Not really, but what are they doing? They're partially partially naked. They're working in the street, and let's say they take off their shirt because they're busy. It's hot. They're busy working on something. That person, and anyone similar to that, she'en makpidim ala boshet, because they're not particular about being embarrassed. Shekol elu, I don't know if I can read. Shekol elu chashuvim kekelev. Says Maran, all of these people are considered like dogs. Now, I shared on Shabbat that in America, dogs are cute, happy, sweet puppies. In the Middle East and Jewish culture also, dogs is not a positive phrase. When we use it about somebody, it's not positive. Ven makpidim al edut sheker, and therefore you can't assume that they're going to be careful about lying or not. They don't have shame. So those kind of people, by the way, Maran doesn't even tell you what happens to people who walk around without clothes just for the fun of it. These are people who have a reason. It's hot. They're working in a thing. What about people just for the fun of it? He doesn't even mention that. If I may, who are we talking about here? Men or women?
Men.
Men, right? We're talking about men here. I will never understand, for the life of me, the double standard the Jewish community has regarding tzniut for women, but not for men. Women have to, next step, maybe it's already not the next step. Some people already, women are going to be walking in the street with burqas and shaved heads, but the men are busy walking around like pilutzim, and that's okay. That's allowed. I never for the life of me understand it. Umichlal elu, and included in these, hamekabelim tzedakah min hagoyim befarhesia. There's halacha echot tzedakah. A Jewish person is not allowed to take tzedakah from non-Jews, period. What if they cannot live if they don't take tzedakah from non-Jews? What if they can't? They can't do it. They're going to die of starvation. Can they take tzedakah from goyim? Rambam writes in Laws of Tzedakah that they can't. No, but they can't. They're miskeni. They're going to work, they're going to die. Says Rabbeinu Rambam, they can take, but betzina, they should do it privately. What if they can't betzina? Fine. Okay, so then what can you do? You're not going to make a person die. But this is a situation, they could do it privately. They take it publicly. I mean, they've lost the shame of a Jewish person losing their financial independence, the independence of the nation of Israel. Because of that, we're not telling you that they're a horrible person, but when it comes to their self-respect inside of the Bedin, we can't assume that there's something what is all the concern? All is the concern is somebody will lie for money. Somebody will lie for an ulterior motive because they have no shame. If a person shows you that they have no shame, then that's a concern that you have. Kol elu pesulim midivrahim. All of these people, says Maran and Siman Lamedalet, are pesulim. By the way, I shared this in the Beit HaKnesset the other Friday night. I don't mean to share with you anything overtly political. It's something a musar for the Jewish people, though. Rambam writes in the Laws of Tzedakah, it's forbidden for the Jewish people to take money from non-Jews. And there are exceptions. For example, if a non-Jew wants to dedicate to the Bedek Habayit, to the help of the maintenance of the Beit HaMikdash, we're not allowed to take tzedakah from him. But if we do take tzedakah, we don't give it back. We don't want to offend the person. We don't want to hurt the person. Not the point. The point is not that. And the Rambam mentions all kinds of pesukim. We'll never name a wall in the Beit HaMikdash or a pillar in the Beit. The Beit HaMikdash is ours. Yerushalayim is ours. We don't give anybody else ownership. There's no names of other nations that Yerushalayim belongs to. The Rambam says, what happens though if the king, the government, decides to send money to the Jewish community? He likes the Jews. He wants to send financial support to the Jewish community. What should the Jewish community do? Anyone familiar with the Rambam? If you were in my class on Friday night 2 weeks ago, you can say it also.
Originally, no, but they give example of when they came. It's like, yeah, they built a second Beit HaMikdash. They did take from the king.
Okay, what does the Rambam say that we have to do? Somebody remember? I should read to you. You'll prefer if I read to you?
At the time of Shlomo HaMelech, the old world gave to the temple, the Beit HaMikdash.
I'm not talking about gifts. I'm talking about tzedakah. Nobody was in my shiur Friday night. 2 weeks ago. Let me read to you. If you want to see the Rambam Hilchot Matnot Aniyim, chapter 8. It says Rabbeinu Rambam Halakha Tet in chapter 8. So 9 in chapter 8. Asur l'Yisrael liton tzedakah min hagoyim b'farhesia. It's forbidden for a Jewish person to accept money from a non-Jew in public. Why? There's a few reasons given. One, maybe there's a Chilul Hashem here. The non-Jew could say, look, all the Jews in the world have money, they don't give it to you, that I have to take care of you. I was once in a situation here in San Diego. Baruch Hashem, I didn't need. I was not in a situation I'm needing. I mentioned once in a shiur when my twin girls were born. We were buying a tremendous amount of formula. And the formula that we bought, most of my children didn't need that formula, but they had all kinds of respiratory issues and things like that. The formula that we bought was very hard to find. Of course, every one of them took a different formula, and the other one had reactions to the other one. And we were going in the middle of the night, and it was something that was so hard to find. You'd have to go to the stores, and they were behind lock and key. And I was imagine it was so difficult just to even find these formulas. And someone told me, why are you busy running around buying formula? Don't you know there's a church here? The church gives out on the first Sunday of the month. They give out to all the people diapers and formula and everything you need for a baby. You go get from the church. You don't even have to go inside the church. It's in the parking lot. I thought to myself, not if a person needs and a person doesn't have, that's not the point. I didn't need. I was simply annoyed that it took me too late at night to go running around from one store to the next. I'm not talking about a person who has no child. I'm talking about me. Why would I ever put myself in a situation where a Jewish person could walk near a church and the church says, look, we take care of the Jewish people, but the Jewish people don't take care of the Jews? Tremendous Chilul Hashem in that. Aruch HaShulchan, he mentions, that was a levush I just told. Aruch HaShulchan mentions maybe that there's some kind of bizayon to the Jewish people. Okay. Nonetheless, what if a person, if you can't live without the tzedakah, and there's no way to take it privately, then it's mutar. What can you do? A person needs to live. Umelech, and a king, or sar, or a prince, a minister, min hagoyim of the non-Jews, sharach mamon l'Yisrael tzedakah, who gave money to the Jewish people for tzedakah. He wants to help the Jewish people who need tzedakah. En machazirin otono. We never ever give the money back. That's horrible. Why? Mishum shalom malchut, out of a peace with the government, with the country. We're not trying to be disrespectful. Halakha is not about disrespecting non-Jews. It's a good non-Jew. He cares about people. Ela notelim mimeno. Rather, we take the money from him. Vinaten le'aniyei goyim baseter kedei shlo yishma hamelech. And we distribute the money very privately, very discreetly, so the king doesn't hear about it. We give the money to non-Jewish people who are in need. So we don't offend the king, and the money goes to where the king wanted it to go, to poor people, but Am Yisrael is politely declining to take money from him. I told you a few minutes ago that I don't mean to be overtly political, so I'm being not overtly political. Woe to Am Yisrael for the day that we might sit, be it in the White House or in Buckingham Palace or in any other government in the world, and somebody could look at the Jewish people and say, I gave you $350 billion and you should say thank you. Busha v'cherpa for the Jewish people to be in such a situation. It's very dangerous, what I'm telling you. It's very, very dangerous. I am not anyone important enough to make such decisions, but if a person wanted to listen to halakha, there's a reason for this. There's a reason for this. The unhealthy dependency on other nations is not safe for the security of the Jewish people. For all the halachot in the world, you're worried about onions being left out overnight. It's not written anywhere in the Shulchan Aruch like that. You're worried about, I don't know what people are worried about. Soon they're going to put aluminum foil on their faucets in their kitchens. There are other things people are worried about. But this one of not putting the Jewish people's national security at risk, I wish somebody would just be machmir once on something, on this halacha. Let Am Yisrael stand on their own 2 feet, so we will never be in a situation where we have to do things we don't want to do because someone who's paying us, Baal HaMe'ah, Baal HaDe'ah, the one who gives us the $100, he's the one who gets to decide what we do with it. So I really wanted to tell you about Rashaim. I could take 5 minutes to finish the shiur here on Rashaim just so we don't have to do it next week. You're okay with it? Okay, let me. I told you about people that are Pesulim le'edut. So we said the Bezuim. Bezuim we did, right? Rashaim we mentioned. I'm going to tell you what Rashaim are. But Rashaim, you obviously have people who on their own. Bezuim also are gamblers. People who gamble, that's considered in the category of Bezuim. Machamat atzmutam. There are people who just innately are not valid as witnesses, at least in the context of a bedin or a ketubah. Maybe valid in other areas. For example, a woman is valid in certain areas of idut, but not in all. But let's say a non-Jew, an eved, a child. Those are things that are they themselves are the reason why they cannot give idut. There are people with certain capacities that are missing, whether they be physical or intellectual. It could be a mum or a chesaron in that, but those are things that would limit a person's ability to give testimony. And last but not least, machamat negiah, some kind of conflict of interest. Imagine they were business partners, one with the other, or with the chatan and kala, or with the defendant of the bedin. So that would be similar to a family member that would have to be excused. So all of you asked me the question of what about the people who do averot? So what kind of averot? What are we talking about? Now, we obviously have a difference between biblical averot and rabbinic averot. Let me read to you some of the averot Maran makes in Shulchan Aruch, and you'll tell me if we ever look for those things when we look for edim by the ketubah. Okay. Number one, whether a person does an avera b'mezid or b'shogeg, it matters. If they did not intend to do an avera, they're not guilty. They may be guilty of the avera, but they're not pasul le'edut because of that. But if they did an avera lehachis, to make HaKadosh Baruch Hu angry, or they just did it l'te'avon, because they have a yetzara and they like this avera, that doesn't matter. Both of them are still pasul le'edut. So he mentions things that are chayivim b'malkut. So Rambam will tell us a few. Somebody who swears falsely, somebody who does not fulfill their neder, somebody who curses themselves or other people with the name of Hashem, or any of the names that even non-Jews call HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Chosher Mishpat, Halakha 27, Siman 27. Somebody who hits his friend, even in a matter that doesn't damage him seriously. Or somebody that does. Somebody who eats tolat, they eat worms intentionally. Somebody who eats hadash. Somebody who plants forbidden plant mixtures and trees. And somebody who cuts the peot off the side of their head. I'm not talking about peot, I'm talking about the part of the head that is not allowed to be cut. Somebody who cuts down fruit trees. Rambam, chapter 19 of Sanhedrin. Somebody who comes close to arayot in ways that are forbidden, that could even include hugging and kissing. Other kinds of reshaim, ganavim, chamsanim, gazlanim, all kinds of thieves. And for some reason in the Jewish community, stealing is okay. Like you could be a big gvir who has a nice beard and kippah and tzitzit, and you donate a lot to the Beit HaKnesset, but you steal a lot of money. Everybody knows you steal a lot of money, and that person is given the seat in the front wall of the Beit HaKnesset, and they're allowed to sign all the ketubot, and everybody says their name in the Mishnah Berach in the Beit HaKnesset. Those are the reshaim, like all the other reshaim in the world. Somebody who threatens to hit a person and doesn't actually hit them, but lifts their hand to hit them, pasul edut. An oshek. Oshek is a person who violates the biblical prohibition. Lo ta'ashok et recha. You cannot cause oshek. What is oshek?
withholding payment for employment.
Withholding payment for someone's employment. You're owing somebody money in a way that's incorrect. A malveh beribit, somebody who lends money to somebody else with ribit. Somebody who borrows with ribit, with interest. By the way, Rabbi Akiva Eger writes that even if a person hasn't yet made an interest payment, they're just in the first day of the loan, but they agreed to make an interest payment, that's already pasul edut. I should keep
What
going.
do you do with the bank? I mean, bank also have rebate.
I don't know what to do with the banks. Especially not in Israel. Especially not in Israel. I don't know what to do with the banks.
Rabbi Levi,
Yes.
can I ask you, are you familiar with Heter Iskas?
Lo alenu. I'm familiar.
That's your opinion.
That is my opinion.
Okay, so it's something I've heard is very popular in the business world. I was just curious to hear your perspective on them.
It's like all the other things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells us we can't do, so we found a way to do it. I see it. I can't tell you. Maybe someone came up with a good halachic justification, and the Heter Iska is done right. And maybe if you lived in my world, my ideal world, nobody would ever be able to open a business, and nobody would ever be able to get a loan. And nobody, it could be that. It could be that my reality is so incorrect that the world wouldn't function properly. Maybe that's why. But my feeling is the Torah is pushing us to strive for something much greater, and that, like any other thing that Am Yisrael does differently than the rest of the world, there are other ways to do this. Like we're not supposed to own chametz on Pesach, so we just own chametz and pretend that we sell it to other people. Or we're not supposed to, all kinds of things we're not supposed to do, and we find clever ways to do them. It doesn't feel good in my heart that we find ways to go around HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Torah.
I was going to ask specifically about the chametz as well, but if I'm not mistaken, I think Shulchan Aruch also describes about that one can sell their chametz on Pesach.
One can sell their chametz on Pesach. One can. It is possible. But what Maran is talking about, selling chametz, and what we practically do when we sell chametz, is not the same thing. I mean, the concept of being able to sell something to somebody else is real. It's a real halachic concept. You do it every day. That would work if people actually did it. But we end up just, that cabinet in our house, it's ours. If that non-Jew were ever chas v'shalom to come to our house in the middle of the night to take our chametz, we would call the police. I'm going to say what we call the police on him. What are you touching my cookies for? They're your cookies. They're his cookies. Whose cookies? All of the. They're telling, listen, a person has a business. A person has a tremendous amount of food they store for reasons commercial or even personal. But fine. So then they can't lose tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. But for the pretzels in your kid's backpack, that's why you want to risk having chametz on Pesach. For that reason. I find that there's so many tricks that we do. I once saw a non-Jewish guy interviewing, I think it was at the Kotel. He was trying to understand why the electric metal detectors at the Kotel have a sign that the chief rabbinate approves their use on Shabbat. And they were trying to explain to him how, our God says you cannot use electricity on Shabbat. Did our God say that? No. But listen, our God says you cannot use electricity on Shabbat, but the chief rabbi has a way that you can. You have to see this non-Jewish man. He's standing there. He's trying to understand. So God said you can't, and the chief rabbi found a way out. For us, it's so normal because we live our life in this way that we have all kinds of ways to get around the Torah. But it really doesn't sound. It's not normal what we do. It's not. I didn't come now to ruin all the ketubot and to get rid of all your sailings of chametz, and nobody should be able to take out loans. I'm not here to ruin your life. I'm here to just read when we're busy hunting down people at the weddings. Oh, you don't keep Shabbat. You're not Jewish. So what about all the rest of the people at the chuppah? What else is going on here? Why did we ignore all the other seifim and Shulchan Aruch? That was my point.
Rabbi, I have a quick question. So how long, like let's say someone does willingly do one of those things that disqualifies them as an aid, then how much time, I don't know if this makes sense, but is there a certain amount of time, let's say they don't want to do that anymore, they do teshuvah, is there a certain what's the criteria of if one's doing something and then now they don't do it anymore. But then now when are they qualified again to deal with this?
Is Al-Hanan on my phone call? Is my son here? Rabbanit, Al-Hanan is listening to me? Or Avinoam? I guess they're not there. Somebody from my Beit HaKnesset. They took a break. I see they're there, but no, he was finishing Al-Hanan and Avinoam were at a basketball game. They were playing. Mechase peshav lo yatzliach. Umodeh ve'ozev yerucham. A person who is modeh, they admit they did an avera, ve'ozev, and they leave the avera, meaning teshuvah, yerucham, already they're an innocent person. You should know, Alex, this is my most awkward part when I do chuppah v'kiddushin. Because before I do the ketubah, I ask both witnesses to stand up and to do vidui. I say, please say, chatati, aviti, pashati. I did wrong. And what I did, I do not want to do it again. I said, I need them to be kasher. I explained to them, it's not that I suspect you of anything, because it's impossible that we haven't yet spoken the Lashon Hara today. It's possible that we haven't done something wrong today. So everybody is able to do teshuvah. I'm sure that nobody of these edim want to do avirot. So just do me a favor, let's do teshuvah 5 seconds before. I'll do it with you. And you should know, the regular Am Yisrael, like regular Jewish people, they're so happy. Of course I want to do teshuvah. It's an opportunity. The more important the people are, important, I'm using that word lightly. They're rabbis, they're Talmidei Chamim, they're Rosh Yeshiva, they're head of a seminary. The attitude that I get, and I do it in a way that is so not, like I say, I also am doing teshuvah. I'm not telling you did an avirah. Who do you think you are that you're telling me that I need to do teshuvah? I don't know. Can I tell you that in my lifetime I never was over on these avirot? Maybe I didn't even do teshuvah on some of them. Ona'ah, selling things that are not kasher. All of these things are in the category of avirot. Ona'ah, what is ona'ah? Ona'ah lo tonu ish et amito. Ona'ah, okay, ona'ah could be.
Charging more than the 6.
Okay, that's the finances. What about ona'ah devarim?
Second.
Teasing someone, bothering them with words.
Hurting them. Making fun of their skin color, making fun of their accent, making fun of their family, their background, themselves, their nose, their whatever it is, all this stuff. All of that is lo tonuish. It's a biblical prohibition on tonuish damito. So what he doesn't keep chalav Yisrael, that's even if anything, it's rabbinic. But that one, now he won't let him be an ed. But lo tonuish damito, that's a real prohibition, biblical prohibition. And I can't go through now all of the list of avirot, but I think you got the point of what I was trying to tell you. There are a lot of people that are in the category of reshaim, at least in the eyes of halakha. I didn't tell you that, again, to be posel. Why am I telling you that? To be encouraging. Encouraging one, please stop putting yourself down. Everybody does avirot. Everybody. I saw a Christian license plate somewhere here. I was driving in San Diego and it said, don't hate me because I sin differently than you. Now, I can imagine which group this might come from, but the idea is this: it's true. We're all human beings. We're all human beings. Rabbeinu Tam and Rabbi Avraham ben Ezra, they once got in a rap battle. You guys know what I'm talking about? Rabbeinu Avraham. What? Tell me.
But this poetry back and forth, and he criticized the Frenchmen for trying to get involved.
Very good. Chesky. But you see, Chesky went to Israel, he came back already. Before he was smart, now he came even greater. What happens, Rabbeinu Tam was a big admirer of Rabbeinu Avraham ben Ezra. The Spanish poets were next level, their poetry they were writing. And so he decided to write a poem of his own to Rabbeinu Avraham ben Ezra. Rabbeinu Avraham ben Ezra was a Sephardic rabbi, so he was a little sharper than he maybe should have been. And he wrote back to Rabbeinu Tam, who let the Frenchmen write songs, very don't quit your day job, basically, was Rabbeinu Avraham ben Ezra. Rabbeinu Tam, he writes back to him with a lot of respect, and he says, I'm sorry, I won't attempt it anymore. I'll stick to what I'm good at. I'm bowing down to you. I'm on the floor. I'm bowing down to your feet. And Rabbeinu Avraham ben Ezra, he realizes how much humility Rabbeinu Tam had towards him. So he told him, please, I'm just a bezui am. I'm just a regular, humble person here. Do not bow down to Bilam. Am and Bilam, they rhyme with each other. I'm just a regular person. Don't bow down to me. But sometimes the regular people have anava, and the holy people that I try to get to do teshuvah at the chuppah, they don't. But this idea that we're all balei averot, so we all have to judge each other favorably. It shouldn't be a hard conversation to have with somebody, but to know who are the edim. Number two, I think to recognize that there's so much to being a person who can call themselves shomer Torah mitzvot. It's a very, very complex title. Halavai that we should merit such a title. And to walk around feeling comfortable with the 1 or 2 or 3 mitzvot that people have decided make us religious and all the rest don't matter is a horribly incorrect. I don't know who made this idea, but then it comes with judgment. You see a person. I'll tell you a story. Moi Harav was teaching Shiur in Hilchot Kiddush. Resh Ein Aleph, Resh Ein Bet, about the wine for Kiddush. We got into a conversation of Yain Nesech and whether the wine that a not religious Jew who doesn't keep Shabbat, whether they touch it and they don't touch it, but Yain Nesech, and I'm sure you know these wars better than me. I'm not involved in these things so much. And Mori Harav said, I want to explain to you something very simple. He said, there can be people with kippot and tzitzit and beards that if they touch my wine, I will never drink it. I will never drink it. Yitzchak ben Kehillat mentioned belief in Hashem. I'm asking you forgiveness now. Mori Harav was very strict about this one particular category. I'm asking you. I'm not telling you to hurt anybody here. He said, you see, for example, that Bet Midrash of Hasidim, they don't accept the state of Israel as God's divine plan. They don't understand that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is part of His plan for redemption. He said, if they were to touch my wine, I would treat it like Yain Nesach. Because somebody who cannot accept HaKadosh Baruch Hu as running history, he doesn't believe in God. Those words I'm telling you now, exactly what he said. He said, and you see that lady going to the kotel, this old grandma that she probably doesn't keep Shabbat, I don't know what she eats, what she doesn't eat. If she would touch my wine, I would make Kiddush on it. And it says, so to summarize, in Hebrew he said, Yesh Charedim, there are religious people that if they would touch my wine, I would not drink it. V'yesh Chilonim, obviously the words are, there are not religious Jews that if they would touch my wine, I would make Kiddush on it. There are tremendous complexity in a person who's connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And to dumb it all down to Shabbat, Kashrut, one thing, another thing. What about the people who are so careful in so many things? Tzedakah, Gemilut Chasadim, they're kind, they're tznuim, not just in their clothing, but in their behaviors and their character traits. They're not decent people. They're above and beyond what regular people are. So they have a chisaron. What a chisaron? I don't know. You choose one of the averot you want to throw at them. That makes them now the worst Jew in the world, or they're not as religious, or they're not. It comes from a bu'ud and ignorance and understanding just how complex and how hard you have to work always to maintain. If you want to say, I am an Eved Hashem, I have Yirat Shamayim, well, you better work hard to live up to that reputation. So I'm going to end the show here because I'm way over time. Mechila that I went over time. I would like, if with your permission, to continue these Pesukim from the Rambam. So what I want to do is all the rest of the Pesukim here. I wish to go with you, Pasuk, and show you which halachot the Rambam extracts from every single one of these Pesukim. And I think it will you may read this in Parashat Mishpatim and be like, wow, those are very meaningful things. You look at how the Rambam applies, don't pervert justice for a poor person. Meaning, the end doesn't justify the means. Don't sit with Reshaim, even if you're going to accomplish something good. Don't ruin the chain of evidence. All of these things are crucial in properly bringing out divine justice to the world. I think when you look at this and you see the beauty that's behind it, that is a halakha we're going to get to in the Mishneh Torah. You're even going to see the God consciousness, if I might call it that. It comes to the world when Mishpat Tzedek, because that's what it says in these Pesukim we're reading, that you must make a Mishpat Tzedek. The Mishpat Tzedek brings to the world. I hope that we will finish these Pesukim in the coming weeks. A reminder for those who maybe don't know yet that I will be coming to New York with my wife, B'ezrat Hashem, and possibly even our children. There's some rumors going around right now. B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach for a shiur on March 31st. B'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach. I hope to see everybody in person if you're able to make it. And I will send that information. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to let me know. If you would like to stick around and talk, share, ask questions, I'm here. If anyone needs to go, thank you so much for learning with me tonight, and thank you for your patience with me as I